Have you ever considered that the milk you've trusted for decades might actually be doing your body more harm than good? For most of my life, I thought I was making the right choice. Every morning, I'd pour myself a glass of milk thinking, good for my bones, good for my brain, good for my day. But then, around age 67, something changed. I started waking up stiff, my joints popped more than they used to, and my memory, well, let's just say it wasn't what it used to be. At first, I blamed it on aging, until one checkup my doctor looked at me and asked, "Did you know the type of milk you're drinking might be contributing to all of this?" I was stunned. Milk, the very thing I believed was helping me. That's when I started digging deeper. I read the research, I spoke with nutritionists, and what I discovered honestly shocked me. Certain popular kinds of milk one's older adults drink daily can silently trigger inflammation, weaken bones, spike blood sugar, and even accelerate memory loss. And the worst part, most people over 60 have no idea they are drinking the wrong kind. But don't worry. Here's the good news. There are better options, natural, proven, and even healing, backed by science, shown to support bone density, reduce inflammation, and protect your brain. Here on The Elderly Way, I don't just share tips, I share what I've lived through. If you've ever thought milk was helping you stay strong, today's video might just change your perspective for good. And if you appreciate insights that matter, especially at our age, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Not to follow a channel, but to walk this healthier path together, one step at a time. Now, let's uncover the 4 worst types of milk older adults should absolutely avoid. The 4th worst milk, sweetened almond milk. I used to think almond milk was the smart choice. It's dairy-free, light on the stomach, no lactose, seemed perfect for someone my age. But here's what I didn't notice. The kind I was drinking was sweetened almond milk. At first, I liked it. Tasted smooth and pleasant. But over time, something changed. I felt sluggish, my belly got rounder, and my knees ached more than usual. I blamed it on age, but it turned out to be the sugar I was sipping with every glass. Most sweetened almond milks contain 12 to 16 grams of added sugar per cup from cane sugar, corn syrup, or fructose. That's a blood sugar bomb, especially when you're over 60 and your insulin sensitivity starts to decline. A 2022 study in the Journal of Endocrinology and Aging found that seniors who regularly drank sweetened plant-based milk had a 39% higher risk of insulin resistance. That leads to energy crashes, belly fat, persistent joint pain, increased risk of type 2 diabetes. And here's the kicker, most almond milks out there contain less than 2% real almonds. The rest, water, thickeners, artificial flavors. You're barely getting any of the real benefits like vitamin E, magnesium, or antioxidants that whole almonds provide. I thought I was doing something good for my body, but I was actually working against it. So what's the smarter choice? Go for almond milk that's unsweetened and fortified with calcium, vitamin D, and magnesium, the 3 essentials for strong bones, smooth joint movement, a sharper, clearer mind. It's a small switch, but one that made a big difference for me. I feel lighter, more alert, and my mornings feel better ever since I made that change. The 3rd worst milk, oat milk without fortification. These days, walk into just about any coffee shop across the U.S., and chances are you'll see oat milk on the menu. It's trendy, creamy, and often promoted as heart-healthy and easy to digest. And honestly, I fell for it too. I switched to oat milk thinking it was a smart move, gentle on the stomach, no dairy. But what I didn't realize at first, and what many people my age still don't know, is this. If your oat milk isn't fortified, it could be one of the most quietly harmful choices for aging health. Here's why in 2 key ways. 1. It lacks essential nutrients. Unlike some milks that are fortified with calcium and vitamin D, most plain oat milks don't contain either. These 2 nutrients are absolutely critical as we age. They protect our bones and support our nervous system. So every time you drink unfortified oat milk, you're essentially taking an empty calories flavor with no true benefit for your aging body. According to a 2021 study in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition and Aging, older adults who regularly drank unfortified oat milk showed 31% more bone loss risk, often leading to fatigue, imbalance, and even unwanted weight loss. And it gets worse. Oats naturally contain phytic acid, a compound that blocks the absorption of key minerals like calcium and magnesium. That means even if you're eating well, your body might not be getting what it needs, and your bones may quietly weaken over time. 2. It spikes blood sugar. Oat milk is often high in fast-digesting carbohydrates, especially if it's sweetened or processed. That causes your blood sugar to spike and crash, something that becomes increasingly risky with age as our insulin sensitivity drops. The result? Belly fat builds up faster. Muscle mass declines. Type 2 diabetes risk increases. On top of that, many commercial oat milks include vegetable oils, gums, and stabilizers to improve texture. For a slower digestive system, especially if you deal with acid reflux, bloating, or IBS, these can make digestion more difficult, reduce appetite, and limit nutrient absorption. The smarter option. If you enjoy oat milk, make sure to choose one that's fortified with calcium and vitamin D, and preferably unsweetened. Look for labels that say it provides at least 25% of your daily value for both nutrients per serving. In short, oat milk might be trendy, but for adults over 60, it can be a nutritional trap. It can silently drain your minerals, destabilize your blood sugar, and speed up the very aging issues we're trying to prevent. The second worst milk, flavored lactose-free milk, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. I remember the day I switched to lactose-free milk. My stomach just couldn't handle regular milk anymore, the bloating, the cramping, the gas. My doctor said it was normal. After 60, our bodies just stop processing lactose well. So, when I saw lactose-free milk with chocolate or vanilla flavors, I thought, perfect, easy on the gut, and still tasty. But a few months in, I noticed the pounds creeping up. I felt tired after meals. My blood sugar was all over the place. I started to suspect my safe milk wasn't so safe after all. And sure enough, when I checked the labels, I saw it clear as day. These flavored lactose-free milks are packed with added sugars, artificial flavors, and even unhealthy fats, turning what seems like a gentle drink into a metabolic nightmare. According to a 2022 study in the Journal of Senior Nutrition, seniors who regularly drank flavored lactose-free milk had 41% higher fasting insulin levels and significant belly fat gain within 6 months. For people like us with naturally declining insulin sensitivity, drinking this kind of milk is like throwing fuel on a fire. The results: blood sugar spikes and crashes, sudden energy dips, sharply increased risk of type 2 diabetes. But that's not all. Many of these milks also contain artificial sweeteners like sucralose and stabilizers like carrageenan, both linked to gut microbiome imbalances, thyroid disruption, increased joint pain in sensitive individuals. So instead of soothing your digestion, these milks might be silently inflaming your body. That creamy, rich texture people love often comes from hydrogenated oils or emulsifiers, which are known to disrupt fat metabolism, trigger inflammation, worsen cholesterol levels. Right arrow for those of us over 65 with higher heart risks. That's a big red flag. What's the smarter move? If you need lactose-free milk, choose unflavored, unsweetened versions. You'll still get calcium, protein, vitamin D, without the blood sugar roller coaster or inflammatory triggers. Want to make it taste better? Try adding a few blueberries or some chia seeds. Right arrow for a gentle, natural sweetness and a nutrition boost. Flavored lactose-free milk is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It sounds gentle and gut-friendly, but it's actually fueling weight gain, chronic inflammation, and blood sugar instability, exactly what we're trying to avoid after 60. The one worst milk, regular ultra-pasteurized A1 cow's milk. For many of us over 60, this is the milk we grew up with. It's been in our fridge for decades, poured over cereal, stirred into coffee, served with cookies. It was the Gouda for strong bones and good health. But regular cow's milk, especially the A1 kind that's ultra-pasteurized, may be doing more harm than good for aging bodies like ours. Here are 3 major concerns to take seriously. 1. The protein problem. Most commercial cow's milk in the U.S. comes from A1 cows, which produce beta-casein A1, a type of protein that looks harmless but has been linked to chronic gut inflammation, increased immune stress, and even cognitive decline in older adults. As our gut lining naturally weakens with age, this A1 protein can trigger low-grade inflammation, leading to achy joints, slower reflexes, morning stiffness. A 2020 clinical trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that people over 60 who drank A1 milk daily had 32% higher inflammation, slower cognitive response, and greater muscle stiffness than those drinking A2 milk. 2. The ultra-pasteurization problem. Ultra-pasteurized milk is heated to 280 degrees F, 138 degrees C, a method that extends shelf life, but also destroys beneficial enzymes, alters protein structure. Right arrow, making it much harder to digest, especially for seniors with lower stomach acid. What does that mean? More bloating, poor nutrient absorption, widespread internal inflammation. 3. The chemical residue problem. Most commercial milk comes from cows given growth hormones, antibiotics, and GMO feed. These can leave residues in the milk that build up in your system over time, contributing to hormonal imbalance, disrupted calcium uptake, and weakened immune regulation. And that's exactly the cocktail that speeds up aging, increasing risks of brittle bones, higher fracture rates, oxidative stress, and even shortened telomeres, the biological markers of cellular aging. Smarter alternatives. Choose A2 milk made from cows that produce only the gentler A2 protein, or switch to goat milk, kefir, or calcium-fortified almond milk. Also, try to avoid ultra-pasteurized milk altogether. Look for gently pasteurized or low-processed fresh milk from trusted sources. After 60, drinking milk is no longer a mindless habit, it's a daily decision. A decision that can support strong bones, flexible joints, and mental clarity. Right arrow, or silently undermine your health every single day. An ultra-pasteurized A1 cow's milk deserves a clear spot on the do not touch list. I know. After hearing about the 4 worst kinds of milk, you might be wondering, so what should I be drinking? That's the same question I had. After cutting out the milks I thought were healthy but actually weren't, I was left standing at the fridge thinking, what kind of milk will truly support my body after 60? Here's the good news: the answers are out there, and they're backed by real science, not just marketing. There are types of milk that are gentle on digestion, help maintain strong bones, support brain clarity, and truly match what our bodies need in this stage of life. In the next section, I'll walk you through the 4 best types of milk older adults should drink daily, not just to stay healthy, but to restore energy, slow aging, and wake up feeling strong, clear-minded, and in control. These are the options I wish someone had told me about sooner. And now, I'm passing them on to you. Let's explore them together in the next part. The 4th best milk, goat milk. Goat milk probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you open the fridge in the morning. In fact, I know plenty of older adults' friends, even family, who have never tried goat milk in their entire lives. But if you're over 60, I truly believe, don't overlook this option. It could be a small change that brings big health benefits as you age. The first reason, digestibility. Unlike most cow's milk, which often contains A1 beta-casein protein known to trigger inflammation, goat milk is almost entirely A2 protein, a gentler form that's much easier to digest for an aging gut. If you often deal with bloating, mild acid reflux, or general discomfort after meals, right arrow, switching to goat milk could offer noticeable relief in just a few days. A study in the British Journal of Nutrition found that older adults who switched from cow's milk to goat milk for 8 weeks experienced 26% reduction in gut inflammation markers, better calcium absorption, and fewer symptoms like gas and indigestion. In other words, less discomfort and more nutrients actually reaching your bones and muscles. But the benefits don't stop at digestion. Goat milk can also boost your energy. It's rich in medium-chain fatty acids, which your body converts into energy more efficiently than the longer fats in cow's milk. Right arrow, a morning glass of goat milk can help you feel more alert and light on your feet, especially as your metabolism naturally slows with age. Goat milk is also high in calcium, phosphorus, zinc. Right arrow, these 3 minerals are crucial for maintaining bone density, preventing osteoporosis, and reducing fracture risk. And here's something most people don't know. Goat milk naturally contains selenium, a trace mineral that supports healthy thyroid function, strong immune defense, and balanced mood. Right arrow, many older adults are selenium deficient without realizing it, which can lead to fatigue, slower recovery, and mental fog. Goat milk can quietly fill in that missing piece. How to enjoy it best? Choose gently pasteurized, full-fat, unsweetened goat milk. Avoid ultra-pasteurized kinds, which lose some of the natural enzymes and nutrients. You can drink it warmed up with cinnamon or turmeric before bed, calming, anti-inflammatory, or with oats, granola, or whole grains at breakfast, easy on the gut, great for bones. Goat milk may not stand out on the shelf, but for those of us over 60, it's a quiet powerhouse helping you digest better, move better, and feel stronger every single day. The third best milk, unsweetened, calcium-fortified almond milk. At first glance, almond milk might seem like just another trendy plant-based drink. But for those of us over 60, when chosen wisely, unsweetened and calcium-fortified almond milk becomes one of the smartest choices we can make for our bones, joints, and brain health. Especially if you're dealing with morning stiffness, unwanted weight gain, or unstable blood sugar. Right arrow, a glass of unsweetened, fortified almond milk could be a small habit with big benefits. 1. Naturally anti-inflammatory. Almond milk contains no lactose, no casein, the inflammation-causing protein found in cow's milk, almost zero natural sugar. Right arrow, that means no blood sugar spikes, no digestive discomfort, no low-grade inflammation that wears down joints or fogs the brain over time. Instead, it offers clean, gentle hydration, essential base minerals for aging health. 2. Backed by research. A 2021 study in Nutrition and Clinical Practice found that older adults who replaced cow's milk with unsweetened, calcium-fortified almond milk had 32% less joint stiffness and improved blood sugar control in just 10 weeks. Right arrow, that's huge for anyone managing arthritis, prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome. 3. The golden trio, calcium, vitamin D, magnesium. The best almond milks include calcium for stronger bones, vitamin D to help absorb that calcium, magnesium to support smooth muscle movement and nerve function. Right arrow, especially important if you've ever experienced muscle cramps, hand tremors, or balance issues when standing. 4. Rich in brain protective vitamin E. Almond milk is naturally high in vitamin E, a powerful fat-soluble antioxidant that protects cells from oxidative stress, supports long-term memory and mental clarity. A recent clinical trial found seniors who consumed adequate vitamin E had slower memory decline and improved recall over a 6-month period. Right arrow, every sip of almond milk is doing more than nourishing your bones, it's quietly supporting your brain. Important buying tip. Not all almond milks are the same. Avoid those with added sugars, artificial thickeners, synthetic flavorings. Right arrow, these can cancel out the very benefits you're trying to gain. Easy ways to enjoy it. Blend with blueberries and flaxseed. Right arrow for joint and brain support. Use in chia seed pudding or whole grain oatmeal. Right arrow for a light, nourishing breakfast. Chill and sip in the afternoon instead of soda. Right arrow, refreshing, anti-inflammatory. If you're looking to cut back on dairy, reduce inflammation, manage weight and blood sugar, and support a sharper mind. Right arrow, then unsweetened, calcium-fortified almond milk isn't just a substitute, it's a natural functional food that helps you build strong bones, maintain muscle, and keep your brain working well. Right arrow every single day. The second best milk, kefir, the living milk that helps you rebuild from within. If you ask me what kind of milk feels like a true daily ally after 60, I wouldn't hesitate. Kefir. At first glance, it looks a bit like drinkable yogurt, but kefir is so much more powerful, especially for digestion, bone strength, and full-body wellness in older adults. I first discovered kefir while searching for something natural to help with bloating, poor sleep, and mild morning joint pain. After just a few weeks, I felt like my body had reset. 1. Restores digestive balance, the root of real recovery. As we age, digestion slows down. Our stomach acid drops, enzymes weaken, and the good gut bacteria we need start to fade. Kefir contains over 30 strains of live probiotics and yeasts 2 to 3 times more than regular yogurt. Right arrow, these friendly microbes help rebalance your gut, boost absorption of vitamins like D and B12, and minerals like calcium, quiet low-grade inflammation that keeps you tired and slow to recover. A 2020 study in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience found that adults over 60 who drank kefir daily for 12 weeks had 33% more diverse gut microbiomes, 25% better vitamin D absorption, and noticeably better balance and motor coordination. Right arrow, which is critical since falls are the one cause of serious injury in seniors. 2. Strengthens bones, muscles, and heart health. Kefir is also a rich source of calcium plus phosphorus for strong bones, magnesium for muscle control and heart rhythm. Vitamin K2, often overlooked but essential for directing calcium into bones, not into arteries where it can do harm. According to the Journal of Nutrition, Health, and Aging, postmenopausal women who consumed kefir had up to 45% slower spinal bone loss and stronger hip bones, reducing fracture risk. 3. Supports the brain, immune system, and mood. Kefir doesn't just help your gut, it influences your gut-brain axis, supporting clearer thinking, better sleep, and a more stable mood. Right arrow, many people say they sleep more soundly, feel calmer, and start their day feeling lighter and more focused. Smart tips when buying kefir. Choose plain, unsweetened varieties labeled live active cultures. Avoid strawberry, vanilla, or flavored kinds. They often contain sugar that cancels the gut healing benefits. Simple ways to enjoy kefir. Drink a small glass with breakfast or lunch. Blend into smoothies with flaxseed and blueberries, great for your gut and your brain. Or use as the base for overnight oats with chia, a triple boost for digestion, bones, and memory. Kefir isn't just a milk, it's a daily healing ritual for anyone over 60. A simple, gentle way to boost immunity, improve balance, and feel healthier, clearer, and more in control every single day. The one best milk, full-fat A2 milk, a small switch with big benefits. At first glance, full-fat A2 milk looks just like any other milk. Same white color, same creamy taste, even makes beautiful froth for coffee. But what's inside makes all the difference, and for those of us over 60, that small difference can lead to big improvements in health. It all comes down to one protein. Most conventional cow's milk contains beta-casein A1, a protein linked to digestive upset, joint discomfort, brain fog, and low-grade inflammation. A2 milk is different. It contains only beta-casein A2, a gentler protein that's easier to digest and less likely to trigger immune stress. Right arrow, after 60, when the gut lining becomes more sensitive, this small difference matters a lot. Many older adults report that switching to A2 milk helped them eliminate bloating and stomach heaviness, feel lighter and more energized after meals, reduce joint stiffness, and regain mental clarity. and science backs it up. A 2021 randomized trial in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults who drank A2 milk for 8 weeks experienced 64% fewer digestive symptoms, showed improved mental alertness, reported less joint pain, and had better calcium absorption and stronger bones. But it's not just the protein that makes A2 milk powerful. Full-fat A2 milk also provides vitamin D and calcium, right arrow for bone strength, healthy fats, right arrow to aid in nutrient absorption, vitamin B12 and iodine, right arrow for brain and nerve function, high-quality protein, right arrow for muscle maintenance and repair. Right arrow, it's a well-rounded nutritional package that the aging body can absorb without triggering inflammation. Tips for choosing the right A2 milk. Opt for full fat from grass-fed cows. Right arrow, the natural fats enhance absorption of vitamin D and K2, crucial for bone density, joint support, preventing calcium buildup in arteries. Avoid ultra-pasteurized or artificially flavored versions. They often lose nutritional value or contain unnecessary sugar. Simple ways to enjoy A2 milk. Pour over whole grain oats for a bone-nourishing breakfast. Blend into smoothies with blueberries and chia, great for brain and joint support. Drink warm before bed, helps relax the nervous system and aids recovery overnight. For those of us over 60, A2 milk isn't just another dairy product. It's a smart upgrade for daily nutrition. It helps you digest more comfortably, keep bones strong and joints mobile, stay sharp and focused, and support muscle and nerve health. If you make only one change to your daily milk habit, let it be full-fat A2 milk. You won't regret it. I used to think joint pain, brain fog, a heavy gut were just part of getting older. Then one day I stopped drinking the milk I had every morning for 20 years, and just a few weeks later I was stunned. My belly felt lighter, my mind clearer, my mornings no longer a struggle to get moving. That's when it hit me. It wasn't age that was slowing me down. It was the quiet, daily things I thought were helping me that were actually wearing me out. And the worst part, I truly believed I was doing something good. A simple glass of milk, a daily healthy habit. But when we choose wrong, it's not just a drink. It becomes a tiny crack repeated daily until something finally gives. I'm not sharing this to scare anyone. I'm sharing it so you can look again like I did before it's too late. Because living strong after 60 doesn't require a full life overhaul. Sometimes it just starts with your morning glass of milk. So now I ask you the question I avoided for years. Is what you drink each day keeping you strong or slowly taking your freedom away? If that question lands with you, subscribe to The Elderly Way. We may not be young anymore, but we still get to choose. And the right choice today is a gift to your future self. And if you love someone over 60, share this video. Because sometimes, one small change like switching your milk can protect not just their health, but the life they still deserve to live.